Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm a little rusty. I haven't done quite this in quite a while, so if I screw it up, you may never know. I want to talk to you about CrossFit. I want to talk to you about fitness, and I want to talk to you about health, and then a kind of a unified sense of all of those and what place CrossFit plays in health and fitness. And so let's start talking about CrossFit. The task, the goal initially was to develop a fitness program that was broad, general, and inclusive. A fitness program, the specialty was not specializing. And a fascinating thing was we were told from the start, you can't do that. And that's all I needed to hear. We did it. It's been done. It's too late now. But I'm going to give you a definition of CrossFit, the 10-second version that satisfies no one, but says everything. And that is, CrossFit is constantly varied, high-intensity functional movement. And the operative pieces here that I want to go over are variance, intensity, and functionality. So CrossFit is constantly varied, high-intensity functional movement. There's precision and accuracy in the statement, and I'm going to give you a sense of these words so that it has a solid meaning. But if someone were to ask you what CrossFit is, and you were to tell them, well, it's constantly varied, high-intensity functional movement, I got to let you know it's a bad answer, even though it's accurate, even though it's precise, even though it will measure up to scientific rigor and muster, and terms are well defined, and it just doesn't, it won't impart anything of meaning to anybody, okay? The best we do when someone wants to know what CrossFit is, I go like, what are you doing tomorrow at like 9 a.m.? And what I want to do is expose them to a workout. And then maybe down on the ground, looking over them, I go, hey, dude, that's constantly varied high-intensity functional movement, and then maybe work your way back in. But don't fall for the trap of being too technical in your explanations, okay? Unless you're just kind of a wonkish person. Variance. As soon as you have a regimen, a routine, that regimen, so your Monday back and buys, Wednesday's legs, remember, you heard of this shit before, right? These routines, this regimen, this fixed workout pattern becomes a blueprint for what you're doing, and its reciprocation or inverse is a blueprint for your deficiency. So as soon as you tell me exactly what it is you do, boy, I've been doing this for years, it works for me, this is what I do on Mondays, this is what I do on Tuesdays, this is what I do on Wednesdays, I'm going to tell you what you suck at on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and every day of the week. What's not there is where you suck. And we want to get rid of that. So we want a constant variance. We're looking for a pattern that has no pattern. We can come back to that if you want. That's the easiest of these pieces. Intensity. Intensity's become a kind of a buzzword in the fitness world, and there are two communities that talk about it with some regularity, and they represent the two factions that have really done much damage to the world at large's sense of fitness. And this damage, by the way, has permeated the university, it has permeated military training, law enforcement training, sports training, and here's the two camps. One is typified by runner's world, the long, slow distance endurance community, the triathletes. The other is the bodybuilders. And the idea that I'm going to bodybuild on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday and run long distance Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday and be fit, bullshit. Doesn't work. Doesn't work. A partitioned or segmented training gives a partitioned or segmented capacity. And as soon as I have you do something like deadlift and then run, you suck. It's as if you've never deadlifted or run before. No matter how many days you ran 3 days a week and how many days you deadlifted, if I mix them the first time they're mixed, you fail. And we've done that over and over and over again around the world and seen it. It's the way a lot of military and law enforcement training has worked. I'm going to get strong on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and I'm going to work my endurance Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and at the end I will be ready for anything. Yeah, you'll be ready for almost nothing except segmented training. Okay? both communities, the long, slow distance, the endurance community, and the bodybuilders talk about intensity. For the bodybuilders, intensity comes down to how red your face gets and how big of a scene you make and how much you grunt and and I go, wow, that's intense. That's Mike Menser doing high intensity training. And it was identified by commotion and exertion, and yeah, we kind of giggle at it. But I'm going to tell you that the endurance community's standard for intensity is just as bad, and that's heart rate. Heart rate is not a measure of intensity. It's not. It's a correlate, but it's a poor measure. And I say that because the exercise physiologists did us a good solid here. They've done very few. This is one they've done. Exercise physiologists, show of hand, exercise phys peep. Okay, sorry. They've done next to nothing for us, and this is one of the things they've done for us that's wonderful. They've defined intensity, and intensity has been defined as power. It is exactly equivalent to the 3-bar equal sign. It is defined as power. Defined as power. What is power? Power is force times distance divided by time. Force times distance is work divided by time, power. How heavy, how far did you move it, how long did it take? Okay? Look at this, distance over time. That's if directed, and this is directed, it's a vector, it's velocity. This is fast and hard, if you want, is power. How fast, how fast and hard. Force, distance, time. So we don't have to look at heart rate if we know how to use and get a weak correlate. Look, on space shuttle launch, these guys are at max heart rate. That booster, that system fires up. You know, there's that huge explosion and all that drama, and these guys are sitting there, guys and gals are sitting there near max heart rate. Is that because they're doing a lot, because it's intense? Only from the perspective of they've seen what happens when it blows the fuck up, right? That's, you know, that's NASCAR. They're super high heart rates. It's the fear of the fireball again. If we get you out in the field and shoot at you, your heart rate goes through the roof, turns out. That's not intensity. Might be an intense experience, but it's not power. It's not because you've moved a large load a long distance and did it quickly. Now, if you can work a scale, stand on it and get a number. If you know how to use a yardstick or a tape measure and determine distance, if you know how to use a stopwatch or a watch and get time, you can measure intensity with uncanny accuracy and precision. I don't need a heart rate monitor. Got it? Don't need correlates. I can measure this shit firsthand and closely with accuracy and precision. That's intensity. So, and let me tell you something else about intensity too on the qualitative side. Make a big long list of things you want out of a fitness program. I don't care what, just write them down. All the things you hope to get out of a fitness program. And I'm going to tell you, if these are things that a fitness program can indeed do for you, I don't have to see the list. Keep it in your pocket. Hide it from me. If indeed these are things that a fitness program can do for you, what I'm going to tell you is that intensity is the independent variable that will maximize the rate of return, the time rate of return on those things. I want to get strong. I'm going to tell you it's intensity. I want to develop power. I'm going to tell you power is intensity. How's that one for easy? I want to decrease my insulin resistance. You may not know it. You do. Intensity dependent. I want to do better on my baseball team. It is the independent variable that will always be associated with optimizing the rate of return on your efforts. Now, why then isn't everyone exercising with intensity? How do we explain super slow and bodybuilding and endurance training, which are, by the way, marked physiologically by the absence of intensity? Why? Because it fucking sucks. Come on, it's hard. It's hard. It's why someone plays the tambourine rather than the violin, why they major in sociology and not physics. It's hard. That's all you need to keep everyone away. That's the difference between people that are successful and unsuccessful. Successful people pursue hard things. Unsuccessful avoid them. There's a lack of success, fitness success, in long, slow distance endurance training. Sorry, doesn't work. It'll make you good at that, just like playing a tambourine will make you good at the tambourine, but it doesn't make you a musician. Bodybuilding. equally silly. Functional movement, another buzzword, man. I attended a symposium, 2-day symposium on functional training for the Marine Corps years ago at Quantico. And they brought in all the world's authorities on functional movement. And it was one of these things where after a while, it was just like blah, 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 functional, blah, 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 functional, functional, blah, 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 functional. I just am sitting there, just hearing this functional. And I look around, I got the Pilates people, I got shiatsu folks, Swiss ball, rubber band. Everyone, they're nodding, everyone's happy. Everyone's hearing, finally, functional movements come to the Marine Corps. Isn't that exciting, you know? And no two people are hearing the same thing. If I say functional and everyone here nods, bobblehead doll style, and you're all like, yeah, thank God, finally, and you all are working off a different definition, I'm not saying anything and you're hearing nothing. I got a definition of functional movement. And here's the thing about definitions. They have utility or not, but they don't really come in flavors good or bad, right or wrong. Once I say a bachelor is an unmarried man, that's just how that is. It's an a priori truth. It's just defined that way. Now, you might want to pick a different term or whatever. When we talk, when we communicate, the first step in doing anything that looks like science is this taxonomical phase where we have to come up with some terms and agree so that when I say functional movement, the Swiss ball people aren't going, yeah, cool, and the rubber band people are saying, finally, and the Pilates people are going, oh, this is a relief, when each of us has something entirely different in mind. I'm going to tell you what functional movement is. Functional movements are those movements that are categorically unique in their ability to express power. How's that for easy? I can measure that with what? Tape measure, yardstick, right? Watch, and a scale, or reading the weights on the, you know, look at this thing. This says 45 pounds. I did it. There. Was that hard? Functional movements. These are those movements that are categorically unique in their ability to express power. That is, they have the decided advantage of allowing us to move large loads, long distance, and quickly. And I can resolve this. One of the favored units here is foot-pounds per minute. Force, distance, time. 33,000 foot-pounds per minute is a horsepower. Horsepower is a measure of power. The functional movements are categorically unique in their ability to demonstrate, to express horsepower. They let me move heavy things a long distance and quickly. Curls, lateral raise, not very far, not very heavy, not very fast. Squatting, deadlifting, cleaning, and pull-ups. A lot of load, long distance, and fast. And when you do the math, you find that there's fundamentally no overlap between the family of non-functional movements and those that are functional in their ability to express power. We've got some funny little things in here in calf raise that start to look, in terms of their expression, like functional movements, and really it's just a follow-through movement on something that is truly functional. We'll come back to that. Interesting, too, for those that are kind of grokking this on a tech level, we had two things that we were very fond of in our repertoire and our arsenal that didn't meet some of our kind of sense of functional. And we've been through this where we talk about universal motor recruitment patterns. They're built into your DNA. These are also ineluctable certain facts of functional movement. They have some characteristics outside of their definition. You following me? That is, they're core to extremity. They originate with large muscle groups that move large loads and slowly, and then you finally end up at some kind of terminus like, whoo, like throwing a ball. So we radiate from core to extremity in this wonderful wave of contraction that starts with large force and a move to a short distance, and done so very slowly, where it finally ends up with where we have low force and we've got a long distance and this thing is super fast. Kind of got my T's a little weird here, but don't worry about it. You know, if you strapped a scale onto the back of a truck and we were going to push this truck as fast as we can by pushing on the scale duct tape to the back, right? When would the force be greatest? When would the scale show the greatest weight? Right out of the gate, right? You might even put 300, 400 pounds, Dave Lipson, 500 pounds before the thing starts to roll. And once it's going so fast, he can't keep up with it. What's the scale showing? Next to nothing, right? This is this wonderful symphony of movement where we go from, again, large force to low force with the velocity increasing, and the total power output rises too. We don't have to get too far down that road. So, variance, intensity, and functionality. Let me just cover some of these characteristics of functional movements. They're built into your DNA. They're part of who you are. If I were to present a schematic of a human being so like, check this out. Recognize that? We can put arms on it, put a head on her and some hair, but that doesn't matter. If we were just to look at the gross anatomy, at the levers and the muscles, you know, glute, hamstring, quad, see that? We're making someone. Abs, okay? If you were to just present a schematic of someone to any kind of analytical system or one of these Star Trek-like brains in a vat in a foreign galaxy that has a life form entirely different than anything you knew, and just present the schematic form with the levers and muscles and show this body and ask this thing, how would this organism with maximum efficacy and efficiency pick something from the ground? Check it out. There's your answer. Deadlift. How would you take something from the ground and get underneath it so you could go overhead? Clean would be the answer. You following me? These things are part of who you are. We look at your gross anatomy, and what we see is that the functional movements are the way you will get work done, force times distance, in the least amount of time. They are efficient and effective. They're universal motor recruitment patterns. They're found everywhere in the world. On a construction site, in combat, in sport, homemakers, mama moving kids around, feeding them and clothing them, functional movements. It's there. By contradistinction, non-functional movements, here's a classic. What's this shit? Anyone ever done that on a job site? Is it essential to raising children? Would you see that in combat? Hopefully not. That's a gym move. Now, the crazy thing about the current culture is that what we see, you can sit there in Gold's Gym for hours, I've done it for years, and watch and go days at a time without seeing functional movement, except for the people coming in, sitting their bags down, leaving, talking to one another. And as soon as they start working out, I get this shit. These movements are almost always compound movements. They're multi-joint. You got one joint moving at a time. People go, no, it's drinking. Bullshit, you don't drink like that. It's this piece to it. And it's not a lateral raise either. It's a, no, there's no utility. There's no functionality in single joint movements. There's very little functionality, very little functional movement in bodybuilding. Not enough, for sure. I can define CrossFit, but when I speak to its purpose, when I start talking about it was designed to create a broad, general, inclusive fitness, we all understand broad, we all understand general, but fitness is one of these words like functional, where everyone nods their head and thinks they know what they're talking about, and we don't have agreement. And so I thought, well, geez, I'm going to just go to the experts. We'll look to Mel Siff and the other gurus, you know, Zatsayersky, and let's find out what fitness is. And I found there's nothing there. Nothing that would meet the rigor of science. That is, give me something that I can measure with accuracy and precision and go, yep, that's fitness. Couldn't find it. So you're like, well, that sucks, because fitness is important, and anything important needs to be measured, right? If it's really important, you got to measure it. What's the first step in measuring anything? I won't make you guess. It's you got to define, you got to delimit the class of things you're going to measure. Suppose we all go outside and, hey, let's count butterflies. We're biologists now all of a sudden, right? We're going to count butterflies. And it turns out that Chad's counting horse flies and rats, and Chris is doing moths and crickets, and you've truly got, you know what the butterflies are. We don't have anything yet, right? It's important, we got to measure it. We can't measure it until we can define it. There wasn't a good definition, not one that a scientist wouldn't laugh at, of fitness. And the most egregious, I mean, it's an abomination, was the American College of Sports Medicine's definition of fitness. Several hundred words long in like one, maybe two sentences, and you could tell what happened. They passed the hat around, and everyone got to put some shit in it, and then they just threw it all up there, and there it is. And it includes vitality and well-being and sense of self and just a bunch of crap. Energy. And they're like, wow, we don't really mean energy, we mean a different energy. So, guy on meth, he's fit, right? Lots of energy. No, it's embarrassingly deficient, not at all the rigor that needs to be introduced to have an intelligent conversation about fitness. Profoundly absent. So, young guy, younger guy, had to sit down and kind of figure out how to do this thing. And we knew that it needed to be broad, general, inclusive. We knew that fitness was important. We wanted something you could measure. And we came up with a handful of operational tests, if you will. Weak definitions, but operationally valid tests for seeing if we were on track or not. And this is part of it here. This is the first model, the 10 general physical skills. Cardiorespiratory endurance, stamina, strength, flexibility, power, speed, coordination, agility, balance, and accuracy. And there are the definitions of those. This is the work of Jim Colley and Bruce Evans of Dynamax, the people that made our favorite medicine ball over there, especially the 20-pounder, huh, kids? Anyone still talking to him? Does he still hate the 20-pound ball? Do you know that? And nobody knows anymore, huh? Boy, the shipping charge, I think, was the same on all the balls, and the CrossFitters only wanted the 20-pounder, and I think we were driving them out of business getting the 20-pound ball. So he decided the 20-pound ball is probably the cause of cancer, heart disease, and tuberculosis globally, and really got weird in trying to get people to not buy the 20-pound ball. So a little history there. So here was the thought, that he or she was as fit as you were balanced and you had as much breadth and depth as you had in those capacities. Kind of a thought experiment. So, and what I could do is I could imagine at the end of the day losing the game, failing at a mission, or losing your life due to a failure in speed or flexibility or accuracy or stamina. They were all critical. They're all critical. And you were deficient or defective to the extent that you didn't have those. The first four, cardiorespiratory endurance, stamina, strength, and flexibility, those are organic adaptations. And what we're talking about here is the facets of physiological adaptation. This was an operational model attempting to define or describe, delimit our definition of fitness. And these first four adaptations are what we call organic. They come with a measurable histological change. There's a change in tissue. Your body tissues themselves have been transformed. The bottom four, coordination, agility, balance, and accuracy, those are neurological adaptations. This is rewriting of code. We use this example in the early days in Santa Cruz because we had a large contingent of folks out of the Silicon Valley, and they really got the difference between hardware and software. And those first four are hardware mods, and those last four are software mods. These first four adaptations occur within the body tissues, and we can measure those changes. The last four happen between the ears. The adaptation is within the brain. The middle two, numbers 5 and 6, those are combinations. They come about through a histological change, an organic change, and a neurological change. That's a hardware and a software mod on the organism. Okay? So what we looked at here was breadth and depth in the various facets of physiological adaptation to a training program. Those are all the things that can really happen to you when you train. That's it. Second one. We had 3 models here. The second one was kind of a thought experiment. We're saying, take a hopper. That's a hopper. I'm an artist. You turn the handle and the drum turns. You know what I'm talking about? Like for a lottery or something, you load it with ping pong balls. And what I want to do is I want to load into this hopper as many skills and drills, as many training modalities and exercises as I can think of. And so Katrin might say, I want to put a marathon in there, put it in. And Chad might say, I want a deadlift. And you might want to put in Fran, and you might want to put in, so I'm not going to deny anything. We can even put some Pilates and stir frying and a walk in there. I don't care. Put anything you want in there. The more, the better. And what I'm saying is that we're going to turn the handle, we're going to line people up, and he or she, who on average statistically does best, is fittest. Cool thing about this, there's really enormous utility here, simple as this is. And in fact, our first games was run just this way. Dave's family at Rancho de Castro had a peanut hopper, and we put ping pong balls in there with reps and sets and exercises and turn this thing. Someone just found the original ping pong balls, huh? Yeah. Oh, those will be in the CrossFit Museum for sure. Yeah, here's the cool thing about this. Is as you load the hopper, there's people that are going, oh, dear God, don't let it be, fill in the blank. Y'all get that? You know what it is you wouldn't want to see come out, right? And you know what it is you'd like to see come out. Here's the deal. To advance your fitness, nothing would be more efficient, more effective, a better spend of your time than to chase headlong that thing you most don't want to see come out of the hopper. That's where you need to be. That's what you need to be focused on. If to the extent you're going to specialize in anything, find out what it is you don't want to see come out of the hopper in a competition of your peers, of your friends, and spend time on it up until you're now hoping it comes out. And then stop. Pick the next thing. There's something. Work it from the bottom. Work it from the bottom. Very important concept. Here we're looking at breadth and depth of training modality of skills and drills and physical capacity as opposed to physiological adaptation, but very similar notion. You following me? There was a third model, and this one was about, so we had the first one was about the breadth and depth of the facets of physiological adaptation. And the second one is about breadth and depth of capacity and skills, drills, and training modalities, actually real-world tasks. Following me? This third one is about bioenergetics, and it turns out there are 3 metabolic pathways. They found a 4th, and I'm sure they keep looking, they'll find a 5th and a 6th. I got power on this axis, time on this one, 10 seconds, about 2 minutes, and beyond. And here we have the phosphocreatine pathway, the glycolytic pathway, and the oxidative aerobic one. These short end ones are anaerobic by definition, and this one's aerobic. And our thought was that fitness would come through breadth and depth in your balance of capacities across a wide time domain. Easy. So suppose they find and have other pathways. Just keep finding them forever like planets, right? Who cares? Does it change the model? No. I need capacity in all of them. We actually developed substantial capacity in hundreds of thousands of athletes in a pathway that had not been known to exist. How do you like that? Nothing special. It was easy. When you train across a broad time domain, you're going to hit pathways hitherto unknown. We didn't need to know about the bioenergetics, how it was the ATP was produced, to find out. So here's a kid, they go, hey, dude, this dude Brooks at Cal, he's showing you're right. I mean, no, he's not. Who the fuck? What are you talking about? Who's showing me right about what? Yeah, your program works. No, dude, it works because of the results, not because some guy in a lab coat found a metabolic pathway that produces ATP. That's their understanding of how this works. Justification for nothing in my mind. We're way more pragmatic than that. We're way more scientific than that, is the truth, too. We'll come back to that if we have to. So I've got this bioenergetics, or ATP production. And I don't care if you know what ATP is or not. It's the currency for all energy exchange within life as we know it. It's what produces energy. And what we wanted is breadth and depth of these capacities, of the time match on ATP production. Here are skills and drills, here are facets of physiological adaptation. Kind of a shotgun approach, but interesting. Really shaped a lot of what we did and a lot of what we thought about. Now there was another piece to this that in the original document here, and this stuff was in the early CrossFit Journal, I believe in 2002. There was another piece that was kind of a casual observation that had a really strong impact on our thinking. And what we had observed, what I had noticed, was that there's a continuum that went from being sick or pathological to being well or normal and to being fit, and that just about anything that I could measure, whether it was of interest to the exercise physiologist or to your physician, sat well ordered on this continuum. There is a blood pressure that's normal. There's a blood pressure that's sick. There's a blood pressure on the other side of normal from sick that's indicative of someone being fit. This is true of body composition. It's true of glucose intolerance or tolerance. It's true of muscle mass. It's true of strength. I do not know of a metric where it is not true. It's true of HbA1c, whatever the hell that is. It's very important, but it also sits on here. We haven't found something we can measure where the fit values, those values that are measured in those that are fit, we haven't found a value where it doesn't sit on the other side of some pathological value with some normal value in between. And this suggests a lot of things. For one, listen, I was just talking this morning with our doc that forever when I was in Santa Cruz Bike, I'd test my blood pressure every morning. I was like 105 over 46 every fucking morning. It was like I could just tell, there it is, 105 over 46. 120 over 70 is normal. And let's say Will was talking this morning about someone being at 240 over 160. That's fucked up. That's hypertensive in a big, bad way, right? Now, see if you follow my logic here. If you've got one of these blood pressures indicative of someone being seriously fit, isn't that a hedge against being sick? But if you've got this blood pressure, don't you have to be normal before you can be sick? If your blood pressure is 105 over 46, you may someday be hypertensive, but I'm telling you, long before you get hypertensive, you're going to be normal. And this is true for body fat, it's true for flexibility, it's true for strength. You following me? It's true for all things we can measure. What this suggested, and I wrote it at the time, was that if all these things we can measure sit well ordered between where normal values sit between pathological values and fit values, it suggests that what we're looking at here is varying degrees of the same measure. We're looking at some reality, something, and this is a lot of it, and this is regular amounts of it, and this is none of it.